At the UN, Trump attempts to save the West from suicide. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt tonight. It is always one of the best speeches for President Trump. We look forward to it every year. His United Nations General Assembly address, and today's did not disappoint. The president in New York to address the coalition of nations, which over the years, we can all tell, has become an international embarrassment. The UN is a terrible place. And right out of the gate, a glitch occurred for Trump's speech, a glitch that might have had you wondering what exactly happened, as the teleprompter somehow failed right as Trump was set to speak.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Turned it into one of the better moments of the entire speech. Now, is that just a bizarre coincidence that the prompter ends or breaks down for Donald Trump, who's a very hated man inside of that building? Or was this a low-level Free Palestine UN employee making a statement? Odds are we'll probably never know. But it seemed a little fishy that it happened right when Trump goes to the stage in a place where they hate him so much to their core. They hate the president inside that building right there in Midtown Manhattan. Trump, from his paper script, went hard against the aims and desires of this feckless globalist organization, regardless, shredding the latest fashion of global leftists, which is, of course, the decimation of borders all throughout the world as a new method of spreading Western wealth.
The entire globalist concept of asking successful industrialized nations to inflict pain on themselves and radically disrupt their entire societies must be rejected completely and totally, and it must be immediate. The fact is, the United States has been taken advantage of by the world for many, many years, but not any longer, as you probably noticed.
At some point, the purveyors of evil in the West decided that the best path toward total control, which is what they want, was to just end all borders, a quick way to dump plenty of desperation into once fully sustainable, wealthy, and prosperous societies. Societies that would never give up their freedoms and quality of life willingly. But take a place like France, for example, and you fill it with Islamic migrants and everything changes really fast. Chaos ensues, the country destabilizes, that's the goal. The real society globalists and Marxists dream of is that much closer to fruition when you do this. The destruction of the once beautiful West can be seen all over Europe, and it is so sad to see. In London schools, there are almost no white British kids left in schools in London. You can see an example there, 12 out of 2779 in one school. England's culture is disappearing. The left can't wait to see that. Sweden went from being a utopia of peaceful, beautiful prosperity, a wonderful place, to gang-ridden and full of violent crime. And Europeans' prisons are now filled with non-European people. Rapes are skyrocketing as loads of Islamic men who see women as little more than sexual devices are dumped into sophisticated Western societies. This is what the UN has been pushing. They're a big part of this problem, a terrifying reality we all must face. Most of the people that are running Western nations want to radically alter our world for the worse. That is the truth. And today the president called out this terrifying reality.
Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. And because they choose to be politically correct, They're doing just absolutely nothing about it. Proud nations must be allowed to protect their communities and prevent their societies from being overwhelmed by people they have never seen before, with different customs, religions, with different everything, where migrants have violated laws, lodged false asylum claims, or claimed refugee status for illegitimate reasons. Your countries are going to hell.
He said it several times. It was a really, really good speech. It's always really good when he goes to the UN because he tells them exactly what he thinks right to their face, something that very few politicians have the guts to do. You never hear this diplomatically. Everybody always says something nice, and it's always cringy to the worst people. He went in there and excoriates them. Climate change, another critical part of what's happening to the West and the decimation of it, and the UN agenda, demanding Western countries cripple themselves via climate mandates. Trump hit that too.
In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening.
What were once concerns about global warming and pollution morphed into another way to change society the way that they want to. And that's why global warming is now, and climate change is now such a big deal. That's why they scream it so loudly now, because they're using it as a tool for something else. And maybe they were concerned about pollution in the environment before. They're not anymore. The truth is the United Nations was once a virtuous concept. It has been completely, though, captured by evil in recent decades. It is now little more than a radical political organization. That's exactly what it is. One that hates the prosperous West, hates Israel as the only Western nation inside of the Middle East, and works every day to dismantle both and spread the wealth of the West to places like Africa and the Middle East. Trump today revealing the UN was completely disinterested in helping him as he worked to end several ongoing conflicts around the world. It's the UN, and they couldn't have cared less about ending conflicts because those conflicts had no real political value to them.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle, and then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. All they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up.
And there you go, the highlights of a great about 45-minute speech today. And Alex Marlow is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart here with us. Alex, good to see you. Is there anything more fun than watching him excoriate these people right to their faces?
It's a insult comedy routine from the most powerful man in the world to the other most powerful people in the world. It is a true treat. Rob, we're in the same boat at Breitbart. This is a content bonanza for us. We look forward to it every year. And this did not disappoint. Here were some of my key takeaways in it. First of all, his avuncular nature, while he was calling everyone out to their face, he was just pulling those puppies, like pulling their leash, like pulling that prong collar around them, saying, you guys have been very naughty, you've been very bad, and I'm going to tell you why you've been bad, but we're going to make the UN great again. And I think he's right about this, that we can't get out of the UN, so we may as well try to reform it in our image. Some of the highlights. The teleprompter in the elevator, that is a big deal because Trump offered to fix up the UN headquarters and pay for it, and they did not take him up on it. Him calling out the Green New Scam, very important because Europe is ruining themselves with environmental hoaxes. Iran. So he solidified that Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terror. And I think this was a message to some of people on his own side who didn't like that Trump bombed Iran successfully. And Trump is reminding people that he's steadfast in that. October the 7th, he reminded us of October the 7th. Rob, don't you feel like people forget about October the 7th for some reason? But Trump was saying, we're not forgetting about it. And Hamas will not allow for a two-state solution, that they don't want Israel to exist. So that was important. He's not happy with Putin. He's thinks NATO is funding the war by buying oil from Putin. And he warned against biological weapons. What didn't he do in this speech?
Yeah. He called that out beautifully about NATO funding a war against them. It's comical that these countries are buying Russian oil and then Russia is using that to engage in a war in Ukraine that NATO is trying to end. I mean, you see example of it. I remember when they called out Germany for doing the same thing with Russia, and it's just like these European countries are run by such incompetence that it's no wonder that they're virtually committing suicide with their policies. The people that are running them have no minds. They have no brains. And the UN, at the end of the day, has become a political organization.
Yeah, and he's the only guy who can do this because it comes off as he's trying to tell you what's best for you. Like, you guys don't see it, but you're committing suicide with mass migration and wasting all your money on green products. And you guys claim Putin's the threat, but you keep buying oil from him, which funds his war. And Putin said, he said of Putin that he thinks that Ukraine can actually win the war, but they're not going to be able to win it if NATO countries keep giving money to Russia. So obviously this is a signal he's really unhappy with Putin, but it's very wise and clear-headed. Yeah. And it shows you the politics in Europe are so backwards that they're going to waste their time flooding their country with mass migration and wasting all their money on green stuff.
You know, the administration has been blowing up quite a few of these cartel boats lately. Trump talked about that today, too. Take a listen.
We've virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea. We call them the water drugs. They kill hundreds of thousands of people. We've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military to destroy Venezuelan terrorists and trafficking networks led by Nicolas Maduro. To every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will blow you out of existence.
It's something to see how he's dealing with this issue, and how bold he is on this, because and the truth is, Rubio got it right. I mean, you can't, interdictions don't work. You can't just keep stopping these guys and taking the drugs and whatever. It's not going to work. If you want to end this, send a message. Start killing people and it ends fast, and you save thousands, if not tens of thousands of lives here in the U.S.
Yeah, we had a report last week on U.S. forces killing 3 Venezuelan cartel operatives in a high seas drug interdiction. It's just one of these things that we're doing, and I think is very it's something we have to deal with the bad guys. And Trump is very efficient about these quick surprise attacks where he takes out the bad guys fearlessly. He never apologizes for it. He calls out things the way we see them. And something that Trump sees really clearly is there's good and evil in this world, and he's not afraid to deal with evil once he's identified it. And this is very refreshing because so many of our politicians on so many issues du jour, Rob, they act as though the evil side, we need to take them seriously, we need to respect their viewpoints. Trump just does not have that mindset because he's a political outsider. And it's just, I'm applauding the whole time when he does this stuff.
Yeah, I love it too. I love that speech. Just as you said, every year I look forward to him at the UN. I hate the UN because it just cripples traffic in the whole city and it's miserable to get around. But him showing up is the best part of the whole thing. Alex, good to see you over at Breitbart. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, Trump and Kennedy looking to end this autism crisis. 1 in 31 now. And the machine is furious over this. We've got Dr. Oz next. Welcome back. You try to do the right thing, this is what you get. The Trump administration getting hammered by the left and the medical establishment after linking Tylenol usage during pregnancy and too many vaccines too early on in a child's life to autism. Today, 1 in 31 American children are diagnosed with autism. That is terrifying, really scary for parents. And there is an army ready to attack anybody, apparently, that's working to reverse that horrifying trend. The administration wants to break up the measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox vaccine into separate doses, not just pile all that into a little baby, and suggesting a much later vaccination date for hepatitis B, which is a sexually transmitted disease. Why is that coming in maybe the day after the child is born? Kenvue, the manufacturer of Tylenol, stating in part its response here. Sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism, saying they're concerned about the health risks and confusion this poses for expecting mothers and parents. The World Health Organization, which helped China to conceal COVID-19 and the creation of that virus, claims that they know for certain that vaccines do not cause autism. Take of that what you will. The legacy media, outraged as expected. From the Associated Press, you can see some of the headline. Trump makes unfounded claims about Tylenol and repeats discredited link between vaccines and autism. Politico, upset about it too, calling it a diatribe rooted in frustration. Washington Post, escalating attacks on vaccines shock public health leaders. And here are the same medical experts that botched COVID, thinking that they have enough credibility to speak on this.
The real world impact is that parents are now, or people are going to think that Tylenol causes autism. It's not supported by the science.
They cherry picked a couple studies that they thought backed their claims. They ignored the lion's share of studies that argue against Tylenol causing autism.
One thing that I think folks will find potentially problematic is this idea that he suggested Tylenol should only be used during pregnancy for very, very high fevers if you can't tough it out. And it's dangerous to not treat a fever during pregnancy.
And just to show the extreme mental illness that we are facing in this country, some would call it TDS. This might be worse than TDS. There are now liberal pregnant women going viral on TikTok. Look at the belly, just popping a Tylenol on camera as some way of owning Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I hope, for the baby's sake, that the administration is wrong, but how terrifying is that? Dr. Mehmet Oz is the administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and sir, it's good to have you back on. Let's start with Tylenol. Can you explain the science behind this claim from the administration? Because the media thinks that they can debunk this fully.
Well, as a preamble, let me make it super clear, something you've been hinting at, which is if you mix politics and medicine, you get politics. The medicine gets pushed out to the side, and we want radical transparency in this administration. President Trump is passionate about this autism issue. There is no political benefit to him tackling this challenge. He just wants the truth to get out there. He doesn't want to wait years and years until we have the definitive final data on whether acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, or prescription leucovorin, which is the high-powered but very safe medication that could be beneficial to kids whose brains are deprived of B vitamins, another potential link that we've identified. So he told us to break down all the barriers. Secretary Kennedy's passionate about this as well. No more agency-specific problems. We're all going to work together as fast as we can, put $50 million into researching these ideas, and as we find clues, signals that might be beneficial to the American people, we're going to share them. So the first signal we found was that prescription leucovorin, which is, again, a medication that helps children whose brains are deprived of B vitamins, which turns out to be, we believe, a pretty common problem in kids with autism, seems to help them. We spoke to all the investigators over the last 15 years. There have been 25 studies or so, generally showing benefit in about half the kids. So the FDA is changing the label on this pill. And we're now going to get Medicaid, which is the agency I run, to support states providing this. Again, they'll pay the prescription costs so that kids around the country who are covered by Medicaid and CHIPS, which is over half the children in the country, can get this medication. The private insurance companies will follow, I believe. So now we've got an idea, some hope for moms whose kids have autism. Again, if you wait 5 years for a mom with a 3-year-old, you've waited too long. And let's turn now to the acetaminophen Tylenol story. There's been a lot of research in this area, and there was a massive study done at the end of August by an institution you've heard of, Harvard. The Harvard School of Public Health put together all the data. It was about 46 studies. A few were negative. Most were actually showing some kind of association, contrary to what you were just hearing. And if you actually look at what they said, without any question, they felt there was enough of a signal to warn moms. We're not saying, by the way, never take the medication. We're saying if you don't need to take the medication, think twice before taking it. A low-grade temperature is probably a healthy thing to fight off an infection because it accelerates your recovery. If you're not sure, call your doctor. If you have a high fever, of course you want you to take the medication. It's the only one that's really out there for moms with high fevers, and high fevers can be dangerous. But they ignore what was said at the press conference because it fits their narrative, and it's confusing to folks to the point that you, as you showed, you've got women not realizing this is a problem potentially, popping this medication to prove that they're undaunted by this. This is not about you or your ego or your politics. It's about your kid. That if we didn't think this was a concern, we would not share this wisdom. Again, we're studying it. We've got a lot more to come over the next 5 years. We'll learn much more. But if you want to know what we know, then pay attention because we're telling you.
Yeah. The transparency is, I mean, so welcome because nobody has wanted to touch this issue, and we know that. Nobody's wanted to talk about this at all, and nobody's wanted to look at these correlations, and that's been so frustrating and so scary for people to wonder what the hell your government's agenda really is. I just think it's unbelievable that it's being met with this kind of reception, and it's really scary. I mean, I saw a tweet from Liz Warren talking about how, I mean, she's basically shaming administration for claiming that autism is some kind of an issue. Saying that, you know, autism community, you are loved exactly as you are. Okay, so we love people with autism, so we shouldn't be trying to figure out what caused them to have this affliction. We shouldn't try to solve that. That's a terrifying message to send from a U.S. senator. Is you know, almost like we shouldn't be talking about this.
I am passionate, as I hope you are, and certainly the president is, to make sure that whatever research we can do, whatever we can uncover, everyone should have access to it. And that's why it's been a bit of a problem for a lot of moms whose kids are autistic. They feel like they're getting gaslit. That every time they think they may have run into some opportunity, no one wants to hear about it. No one wants to talk about it. You don't want to mislead people. So we pulled together all that data. Again, if you have the NIH working as hard as they can, allocating $50 million in grants, and the FDA sees that and changes the label just to help, not banning, just to support, you're being knowledgeable, and then my agency pays.
Yes.
You should be thankful for that.
Yeah. Let me just cut in because I don't have a lot of time now. I want to let you talk about the measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella, I think is chicken pox. Breaking those up, not putting all of that into a child at the same time, breaking that up. Why is that critical as far as what you guys have found?
Well, the president said he supports vaccines. He said Bobby Kennedy supports vaccines. The whole point is not whether you get vaccinated, but how do you do it. If you put a lot of different vaccines into a small child all at once, you can confuse their immune system because each of these medications has adjuvants in it that stimulate the immune system. It might be too much. In other countries, you're allowed to break them up. In fact, if you look at the vaccine schedule overseas, it's far different from what we have in this country. And we have an opportunity to actually maybe give your vaccines in a way that might reduce theoretically and maybe in reality the risk of you getting autism. That is research we are aggressively pursuing. As we find things out, we will share them with you. There will be no opaqueness in this administration as opposed to what was happening for the last 4 years.
I love that. Dr. Oz, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Bless you.
All right, back to the president at the United Nations today, decimating that organization. We actually have Chris Landau, who's the Deputy Secretary of State under Marco Rubio, joining us now. Chris, good to see you, sir.
Hey, terrific
I wanted to
see
just
you,
get
Rob.
this question to you. You know, after, thank you. We ended USAID. How much longer are we going to be the primary funder of the United Nations? The president goes into that building and excoriates them every year. Why do we fund so much of the nonsense that the UN uses for its political agenda?
We're taking a hard look at that now, Rob. In one of his first executive orders after he took office, the president ordered us at the State Department to undertake a comprehensive review of all of the United States participation in international organizations, from the UN on down to, you know, all kinds of commissions no one's ever heard of. There's hundreds of them. And we've been doing that. We've internally prepared a document. We've presented it to the White House. So it's going through a review process now. But believe me, reviewing our participation to make sure that these organizations are doing more good than harm. As the president said today, you know, you wonder, where has the UN been when the president's out there trying to bring peace between countries? The UN is nowhere to be found, Rob.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, and I think we pay about half of their budget. And I just always wonder. I mean, when they're out there, all they do is stir up chaos. They fund the border crisis. They're paying people to come into our border and decimate our sovereignty, and they're doing this kind of nonsense all over the world, and we're paying for it. It makes no sense. I think we should.
Well,
I think we should send them today. Put the building in central Brooklyn and cut the funding. Go ahead.
The president really threw down the gauntlet today to the UN and the globalists. I mean, you know, everybody is used to presidents coming up here and kind of talking kumbaya, you know, hollow words about peace and all this. Donald Trump is a man of action, not of words. And, you know, words have gotten these conflicts that he's resolved nowhere. And I think he said, you know, you at the UN have been pushing things like open borders, like climate alarmism, rejection of common sense energy solutions. That's all over. We're not going to play that game anymore. And we are a sovereign nation, and we are pursuing our interests. If the UN can be helpful in promoting the interests of our country, that's great.
But no more of the nonsense. The message was great. I want to play this for you, sir, real quick. I just want to play George Stephanopoulos and Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State. I couldn't believe how hard Stephanopoulos went at Rubio simply for ending these programs that were so ridiculous. Take a listen to this.
So we are restructuring the way we do aid. It's going to be far more effective, and it's going to be integrated into our holistic foreign policy.
That's all in the future. But are you standing by that comment? You're saying that no one has died?
No, it's happening now. That's not in the future.
No one has died because of the aid cuts? Are all those aid organizations lying?
That's ridiculous. Well, first of all, then they died because England didn't give enough money, or Canada didn't give more.
So you're no longer disputing that the aid cuts have cost people's lives. You're no longer disputing that.
It didn't. I think anybody who tells you that somehow it's the United States, if we cut a dollar, somehow we're responsible for some horrific thing that's going on in the world is just not true. They're the ones to blame for whatever happening there, not us, who provided more aid than anybody else.
Let me just try one more time.
Africa,
are you standing by
every part of the world?
Are you standing by your contention that no one has died
because the United States has cut aid? No.
Chris, I couldn't believe how hard he went on that. I mean, you have a full throttle globalist big government Democrat who somehow is allowed to just host a show at ABC, just another indication how bad ABC is. And apparently it's going to perpetually forever be our job to keep everyone in the world alive here as the United States. That's our job.
Rob, it makes me so proud to serve in this administration when I see a clip like this. Like, we want to get along with our people. We want to have international partnerships, but we are defending our own interests, right? I mean, the American people elected this administration to put America first, and that's what we're doing. Again, we are extending a hand of friendship to other people in the world, but we're not going to be suckers just promoting programs, that don't benefit our country and that actually can hurt our country, that don't make any sense, just for the sake of having people at the United Nations, throw roses in our path. And George Stephanopoulos. I mean, I think Donald Trump, this is so important, what is happening now, Rob, that he is saying enough is enough. I mean, the emperor has no clothes. This United Nations, again, it has a noble goal. We'd like to make it work, but we're not going to. Gone are the days that we're just going to be funding programs that hurt our national interests.
That's exactly right. The Deputy Secretary of State, Chris Landau, thanks so much. We appreciate it, sir. Antifa is now a terror organization. How hard will they be to find and prosecute? Journalist Andy Ngo knows this group better than anyone. He is up next. Welcome back. The president signing executive order designating the far left-wing group Antifa as a domestic terror organization. That order directs the federal government to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle all illegal operations conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of that group. Antifa has a long history of terrorizing this country, ambushing and assaulting federal agents at ICE facilities, bringing pipe bombs to pro-Trump events, creating an autonomous zone of crime and misery in Seattle. One believer even detonated an explosive outside the office of the Alabama Attorney General. We see this all over the place. There are Antifa writings on the bullets of the man that just killed Charlie Kirk. It is proof of how radical the left's agenda is, Antifa, and it's something that many in Washington refuse to talk about at all. Take a listen.
We look at Antifa as more of an ideology or a movement than an organization.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia.
Antifa's not really a group. It's sort of a philosophy in many ways. Like, I don't even know what Antifa is. I know what the definition of Antifa is. And I know what the word means, but it's not a group. There is no group.
Andy Knows, the senior editor at the Post Millennial, and joins us now and knows more about this group than anybody. What do you say to that response largely from the media, mostly from Democrats, that it's just an idea?
Well, it's a sleight of hand. They are correct that it's an idea, but jihadists who have killed thousands of Americans also organize around an idea. So I don't get what their point is. Well, actually, I do know, I get their point. Their point is they're trying to diminish it and make it seem like not a violent threat, that those who have been victims of their violence, those who have been killed, that's really maybe some other phantom terrorists that did it, or that they did it to themselves. You know, we saw after Charlie Kirk was assassinated that there was this attempt to portray the assassin suspect as MAGA. So this is straight out their playbook. I would list out all the convictions from people who have been, who are Antifa members who carried out attacks. You mentioned the bombing on the Alabama Attorney General's office. There was the 2019 bombing and shooting of the ICE facility by a man who left behind a manifesto declaring himself Antifa and also referencing the same Antifa song lyrics that the Kirk assassin suspect allegedly wrote on the rifle cartridge. Right. In 2020, there was a Trump supporter who was assassinated in downtown Portland by a man who also called himself 100% Antifa.
Do they gather? I mean, you've been attacked by these guys. Do they gather somewhere in the dark corners of the internet? Do they discuss plans? I mean, I'm wondering how hard it's going to be for them to find these guys and bring them to justice.
It's going to be extremely hard because the way Antifa organized is to be extremely diffused and decentralized. So one cell or one network can be taken out. It won't disrupt the operations of the entire movement. And that's by intention. They've learned a lot from the mistakes of prior left-wing terrorist groups, like in the 60s and 70s. You had the Weather Underground, the Black Liberation Army, many others. When they were very formally structured with leadership, when it was very easy for the FBI to break them up and get them convicted ultimately and spend time in prison. But the way the Antifa organized, it's completely diffused, and the DOJ is going to have to be very creative. But I think they have the tools there: RICO and federal conspiracy charges.
Yeah. Andy, hey, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks for giving us the wisdom on Antifa. You know a lot about it. All right, before Charlie Kirk's assassination, which clearly had Antifa motivations behind it as well, Kirk wrote the foreword for a new book called Pagan Threat, which is now an Amazon bestseller. The book looks into confronting America's godless uprising. It's written by Charlie's longtime friend and pastor, Lucas Miles. Charlie Kirk encouraged Pastor Miles to write Pagan Threat, and he offered to write the foreword of that book, and you can get it on Amazon or just get it from Newsmax with a special offer you see right there on the screen. All right, up here after the break, it appears Disney and ABC bent the knee to Jimmy Kimmel out of fear of left-wing violence. That is next. Welcome back. The two biggest local affiliate owners in the country will not be broadcasting Jimmy Kimmel's big return tonight. That means Kimmel will be replaced by news on 66 different ABC affiliates. So this victory that he's having right now is partial, because that hurts. Sources say they don't plan on putting him back on these affiliate stations until he issues an apology. You wonder how big his ego is. You doubt he'll ever do that. Kimmel is set to return after ABC and Disney clearly caved to the fear of radical left-wing retaliation and violence. You had an ABC station in Sacramento that got shot up. You had Sinclair getting threats to their ABC affiliates, and so they bowed to this, which is the worst thing you can do because they're just going to do this more. Kimmel's swift return also totally disproves the theory that the Trump White House forced Disney and ABC to fire Kimmel. Oh, I guess that didn't happen after all that nonsense. Don't tell that to these two goobers. Take a listen.
What was your original take on how this all went down starting last week?
I mean, I thought it was pretty much the most direct infringement by the government on free speech that I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, okay. From a guy that does nothing but the bidding of one political party in a two-party system. Okay. Nothing more than a slap on the wrist, and now ABC will continue on with programming like George Stephanopoulos we just showed you, like The View, that basically excludes all Americans except those that are on the very active political left, which is what ABC now is. It's a network for about 25% of the country. Larry Elder and Caitlin Sinclair join us now. Larry, Disney bowing to left-wing violence and fury. That sets a hell of a precedent.
The Jake Tapper comment is the one that got me, Rob. The biggest infringement of the First Amendment he's ever seen. What about the Hunter Biden laptop story suppression? What about all the people that dissented over COVID and got banned and suppressed? Are you kidding me? And what gets me too about this is that you mentioned Jimmy Kimmel's ego. He reportedly was asked to apologize by Sinclair and reportedly refuses to do so. So you have the situation with Charlie Kirk's assassin. I was there in Phoenix. Charlie Kirk's wife forgave the assassin, even though the assassin is not cooperating with the authorities. So the assassin could not have apologized or shown any contrition. Jimmy Kimmel reportedly is not going to apologize, is not going to show any contrition. So Jimmy Kimmel and Charlie Kirk's assassin have at least two things in common. They're both from the left, and both have been forgiven without an apology.
Yep. Yeah. Caitlin, your thoughts?
I think, Rob, your audience already knows this, but we have to look at the facts here. And the facts are this. No one banned Jimmy Kimmel from every social media platform, but that happened to Donald Trump. That happened to many conservatives. No one conspired to put Jimmy Kimmel in jail. As we know, that also happened to President Trump. And no one attempted to shoot Jimmy Kimmel or anyone that's part of that leftist elite class, but that has happened to now two of our men, two of our soldiers, Rob. So what happened to Jimmy Kimmel was simply a business decision. It was that his corporate employer decided he was no longer a good figurehead. So I think everyone on the left and all of these elitists and Holly weirdos that are crying about this, it's ironic, Rob, because they're crying more about Jimmy Kimmel not being on air for a few days than they did about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I think it speaks to a stark contrast in the American people are noticing.
It's abysmal, Caitlin. And I tell you what, I can't wait to see how hard he goes tonight. I don't think that apology's coming out. And you wonder just how hard he goes in the paint. We're going to find out here in just a couple hours. Larry and Caitlin, good to see you both. Thanks so much. All right, attempted Trump assassin Ryan Routh, guilty on all charges in a Florida courtroom today. Trump spoke about the verdict earlier. Take a listen.
You can't let things like that happen. Nothing to do with me, but a president or even a person. You can't allow that to happen. And so justice was served.
So after the verdict, Ryan Routh attempted to stab himself in the neck with a pen and kill himself. He failed at this, but we're going to see just how long he's going to let himself live as he awaits his sentencing. He's facing life in prison. The jury took about 2 hours to find Routh guilty after a 2-week trial there in Florida. And just a reminder, had Trump not been shot in the ear in Butler and just narrowly avoided that assassination, leading to a much larger Secret Service presence, Ryan Routh would have very likely been the one that would have killed Donald Trump as he ran for president in 2024. They would have never, that gun was just barely poking out of the woods. If they didn't have all those guys there, they probably wouldn't have seen it. That shot was clean about 50 yards away. It would have been an easy chip shot to shoot who would be the next president of the United States. That's really scary reality. All right, Macron tries to cross Trump's Manhattan motorcade. It did not work out well, and it's next in News from the Left. Welcome back. Time now for News from the Left. French President Emmanuel Macron getting an authentic taste of New York. His vehicle he was traveling in, everybody's here for the UN, right? His vehicle gets stopped at 2nd Avenue, right near Newsmax, actually, as the streets were shut down for Trump's motorcade. So he calls Trump. Take a listen.
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right now. That's all. I'm sorry. If you don't see it, let me cross.
How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you.
How are you? Macron, it didn't work out too well. He ended up going for a nice long walk. Cameras capturing the whole thing. Hey, it's the Trump motorcade. You're not getting past it no matter who you are. Next up, Keith Olbermann, known psychopath at this point, threatening CNN analyst Scott Jennings on X. Olbermann replying to a post from Jennings saying, "You next, mother effer," but keep mugging to the camera. Olbermann quickly deleted the posts after Jennings CC'd the FBI Director Kash Patel. Olbermann then went on to apologize, didn't want to get arrested, saying, "Yesterday I wrote and immediately deleted 2 responses to him about Kimmel because they could be misinterpreted as a threat to anything besides his career. I immediately replaced them with one specifying what I actually meant. I should have acknowledged the deletion and apologized yesterday. I'm sorry that I delayed." Only the best from Keith Olbermann, who has just completely lost his mind. Remember how good he was on SportsCenter with Dan Patrick all those years ago? That was a great show. I don't know where he went. He went off the deep end. And finally, here's some fake news for you. An open border NBC headline. ICE held a 5-year-old autistic girl in Massachusetts to pressure her father to surrender, the family says. Oh, you mean the family that's trying to get out of trouble? NBC reporting the husband, Edward Mejia, drove home. They claim that he managed to run back into the parking lot of his house, but they had already grabbed their daughter. The ICE agents had already grabbed their daughter. The girl's mother adding, "They took my daughter. She's 5 years old. She has autism spectrum. Give me my daughter back." Again, these people have an agenda here, and NBC bites in right on it. What NBC did not report on, though, was this from DHS. The criminal illegal alien target, with previous arrests for domestic abuse and strangulation, among other charges, abandoned his own child in the car. He abandoned his 5-year-old daughter in the car. Officers helped to rescue the child and called local police to report the abandonment. That's the real story, of course. And also, NBC didn't report how awful the man that was being arrested was, because they want you to think, oh, it's just some guy that's, working in a restaurant that's just getting thrown back to Mexico and his family getting split up. All right, one final insult at the UN next.
You walk on terraza. Do you notice that?
And finally tonight, Trump slamming the dumpy United Nations, a building I've been in. I can tell you it's not that great. And they're in the midst of a ridiculously expensive renovation that left the president stuck on the escalator, which was funny enough. Take a listen to this.
I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time. They had massive cost overruns and spent between $2 and $4 billion on the building and did not even get the marble floors that I promised them. You walk on terraza. Do you notice that?
You walk on terraza. You notice that? It's not marble. It's a cheap floor. And between the flooring and what happened with the teleprompter today, the broken escalator, the UN is a mess. Affinity's up next. Let's bring him in to talk about this. I can't stand the United Nations, Rob, and I can't stand the traffic that it brings to our little neighborhood every year for about 2 weeks. And he should put it in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and let them look at the world that they all desire for the West, which is just the misery of central Brooklyn. They should put it there, and they should stop funding it. I would laugh hysterically.
I said the exact same thing. We had our Newsmax Christmas party at the UN, which of course was lovely. But that building is a dump. The president is right.
And $2 billion renovation. All right.
I'll
leave it there.
Terraza. All right. Thanks, Rob.
Terraza.